Well, this was now well into 1999. And now, I realized that the current gurus were really acting more as representatives of the higher ashram authority, the GBC. And naturally, this led me to the next question. If the current gurus are actually representative gurus, but currently they're representatives of the GBC, shouldn't they actually be representatives of Srila Prabhupada and not the GBC? And that's what the Ritwik Ras camp had been saying all along. Even though I personally had come that close to accepting the Ritwik Ras idea, I still refused to fully accept it because of my previous argument that you can't force a guru who is no longer living or present to accept you as their disciple. We can't force Srila Prabhupada to accept us. If we could, why not force Rupa Goswami or Narad Muni? So that was one of the main arguments that I had against it. And because of that argument, I kept refusing to simply, fully accept this Ritwik Ras idea. I still considered it must be bogus. And still, not yet, had I sat down and earnestly started studying the Ritwik Ras side. One thing that was becoming obvious, however, was that the increasing number of lines of thought that kept bringing me to that conclusion, that the current gurus were not actually gurus, and that they were not acting as real ultimate masters of their disciples. And even the GBC argued that the only thing that gave them any superficial appearance of being an actual guru is the fact that they were performing the duties of the GBC that Prabhupada had prescribed for them to perform. But having reached the conclusion that the current gurus were really acting as representatives of the GBC, that really made no sense. But this is what my analysis had led me to conclude. This was the current position. And that position was not supported by Shastra. There was nothing traditional about the disciples having to accept the higher ashram authority of the GBC over and above their guru. So this was leading me to realize that they shouldn't be representatives of the GBC. They should be Ritwik representatives of Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. There's a duck in the temple room. Does anybody see? Anyway, where'd that duck? While I was thinking like this, I found that I was now sitting on, oh gosh, sheesh. Oh, wow. Wow. What is this? Oh, I found that I was now sitting on the Ritwik Ras multi-guru fence. At the end of 1998, I found myself sitting on the fence on this issue. And actually, I realized I wasn't just, straddling in the middle of the fence either, but I realized I was already leaning over toward the Ritwik side. If I lean over anymore, I'm going to fall over. Oh, whoa, that's better. And so, okay, so really, what really was the position of the current gurus? What? And anyway, what was the real position of the ISKCON gurus? They were acting just like. Come on. And so, what was I saying? So what was the real position of the current gurus? They were just acting like. What's the sign? What does it say on that duck sign? It says Ritwik Daksha Guru? Okay, so yeah, the so-called current ISKCON gurus were acting more like what? Ritwik Daksha gurus? Well, if it looks like a duck, and it walks like a duck, and it talks Okay, sorry. And it quacks like a duck. Then it has to be an ISKCON Ritvik Daksha Guru. Okay, you done? All right. The more I analyze this, the more the ISKCON Daksha Gurus, the more the ISKCON Diksha Gurus were looking like ducks. God, wait. I mean, the more they were looking like Ritvik ducks. Oh God, no. I mean, the more the Ritvik representatives, they were looking more like Ritvik representatives and not at all like bona fide Daksha Gurus. I mean, Diksha Gurus, Diksha, Daksha, whatever, you know what I mean. So far, I had reached all these different conclusions as I analyzed different subtopics around the outer areas of this issue. Yet up to this point, I hadn't actually even begun to directly study the substantive arguments of the Ritvik Ras issue yet. Because every time I tried to, I was repulsed by this wall of dark, sickening feelings. And yet, even without directly researching the Ritvik Ras side, just from these logical and analytical processes, I had already wound up not just sitting on the fence on this issue, but I had found myself leaning quite heavily toward the Ritvik side. Hey, Daksha Guru? Okay, so anybody know where these ducks are coming from around here? So, I mean, who let these ducks in the temple anyway? Even though I found myself favoring the Ritvik side, as it would turn out, I wound up sitting on the Ritvik Guru fence for quite some time. There were still so many unanswered questions and arguments that I had, and they had to be addressed. I would need to analyze and assess all the arguments I could find, and everything would have to add up in full and make total logic sense before I could fully accept the Ritvik side. I had to be totally certain. It had to be 100% philosophically sound. Those were the standards I set for myself before I could support this. I knew at that time I was far from any final decision yet. One thing, however, that continued to bother me, frustrate me, and spurn more distrust and doubt toward the GBC was this annoying fact that for 2 years, I had been emailing them so many times and was begging them to engage with me in an intellectual and sober discussion and discuss the merits of my analysis, which up to now my focus was actually had nothing to do with the Ritvik Ras idea, at least in my focus. I had just wanted to offer my analytical services to try and help the GBC resolve an important issue which they were struggling with at the time. And yet, all they had ever done was just to have sent me 2 short replies and rejected my research entirely. Yet rather than, they didn't enter into any sort of productive and substantive exchange nearly 2 years, for nearly 2 years. They simply cut off communications with me on this topic. And now I began to see cracks in their system, in which I wanted to again discuss with them in a productive way, constructive way. But still, they would not respond to any of the emails, communications that I sent them.